If you've ever had to make a decision that completely terrified you and you knew that there's no going back, then this episode is for you. Because sometimes the hardest and most difficult decisions are the ones that will set you free. Several months ago, I made a decision to train and compete in my first amateur mixed martial arts fight, which was quite an experience. And ultimately, I lost the fight. But today we're going to talk about the 5 lessons from the decision that broke me and built me as well. So let's get into it. The first lesson is that fear shows you what matters. Before I competed in my first amateur fight, I had the belief that when you feel fear, that means you stop. The truth that I learned is that fear is actually not a stop sign. It's a signal. It's something that will show up and something that will always be there. And you have to understand it and look at it and read what it is and feel what it is and think about what it is, but you don't stop and not do anything from there. You just have to be aware of it and move right past it. I was extremely terrified training for my mixed martial arts fight, and I was even more terrified stepping into that octagon and actually fighting somebody else. I could have backed out at any moment, but I knew deep down that this was the line between who I was at that time and who I wanted to be. I knew that if I wanted to conquer this fear, I needed to push through it. I needed to figure out a way to have a better relationship with fear and understand and not look at it as a stop sign, but rather as a signal, and just keep moving forward and ultimately push past it and get to experience what is on the opposite side of fear. It taught me that fear doesn't mean that you turn back. Fear just means that you pay attention. Pay attention why you're afraid. Really take the time to understand why you're afraid, because you're going to uncover a lot of different things. And once you start to uncover those things that make you scared, then you can start to address each one of them, and they can all be very different things. You can be afraid because you don't have the skills. You can address that. You can be afraid because you're afraid of what other people will think. You can also start to work to address that as well. And you can be afraid because you're afraid you're going to get hurt. Very legitimate, but also at the same time, you need to understand that there is opposite positive things that can come out of it. You can also win, you can also grow, and you can also become a better person. The next one is courage isn't confidence, it's commitment. The lie that I told myself is that I needed to be ready before I could act. The reality is that courage is committing before you're ready. Courage is the ability to take that next step. I lacked courage, in my opinion, coming into this training camp and coming into this fight, because there were a lot of things that I ran from prior to that. But training for it and ultimately stepping into that cage built courage. It built the ability for me to actually step across that line of fear and into a zone that I deem to be dangerous, but understanding that I am capable through training and determination. I committed to the fight before I felt ready. I committed to the fight and showed up scared anyways to train for it every single day. And that's what made it even more powerful, is the fact that despite all those feelings, I was able to still push through it. And that is the mentality that you need to take into life, is that despite feeling afraid, you need to figure out what it is that you need to do for you to start to take one step at a time. And eventually that's going to build into courage. And once that tank of courage builds up to a certain level, and newsflash, it's going to continue building for the rest of your life, and you can also tear it down, but that's another story for another day. Rather, if you're building that tank of courage, you're going to have more power and more ability for you to actually be able to do more and more things that you think you're afraid of. There is no such thing as being ready. I used to think that there was this getting ready or getting to a point where you're ready. No such thing. Readiness is a myth for the most part. Courage moves first. Every professional athlete will train as hard as they can, and they might feel that they're ready, but they know in the back of their mind as well that there might be something that they're missing, that there might be something that they didn't quite do right in their training, or there's this little piece that's just missing, but they still move anyways because they've done everything they can, and that they've built that tank of courage, and now they can dip into that tank when they need it. And that's something you can strive for. Moving on into the next one, it's losing isn't the end, it's the invitation. Like me, you probably think that losing proves that you are not enough. I used to think that way, but now I realize that the truth is that losing can be the start of something bigger. Losing can actually serve to be a catalyst of something much bigger in your life if you allow it to be that way, and if you look at it that way and change your mindset and relationship with losing, it can be a wonderful thing. I lost the fight, but what came after the fight? This very podcast, this message, me moving to a whole different state and starting a whole new life, all of that came from the fight. All of that was the tank of courage that I built up. If I hadn't done all of that work and I hadn't gone through that loss, I probably would still be somewhere close to where I was at the time. But I allowed that loss to finally, after a lot of self-reflection, help propel me to the next level, and it brought me where I am right now. And the next losses that I'm going to suffer in my life are going to do the same. And my hope is that I just keep continuing and learning from it. And my hope as well is you do the same and look at your losses this way and use them as fuel. Losing doesn't close the chapter. It opens the story. The next one is your identity is chosen. It's not inherited. I'm not the kind of person who does this. I'm not the kind of person who trains for a mixed martial arts fight. I'm not the kind of person who fights in a mixed martial arts fight. I'm not the kind of person who can win. I'm not the kind of person who works for one of the top tech companies in the world. These are the things that I used to tell myself, some of it consciously, most of it subconsciously, by training my brain subconsciously that way all throughout my previous years in my life. I wasn't born a fighter. You're not born a fighter. Nobody's born a fighter. You choose to become a fighter. And in doing so, you can rewrite your whole entire identity. And it's not just in the cage, it's in life as well. You're not born to be an entrepreneur. You're not born to be a successful executive in a company. You're not born to be a star athlete. You choose to become that thing, and you can mold yourself into that if you can just open yourself up to failing your way to that. Probably one of the best lessons that I learned is that you don't find your identity, you forge it. I spent a lot of time trying to find my identity, trying to find who I was, trying to find my purpose, not realizing that you find it in the furnace. You find it when you forge it. You find it by taking that metal, putting it into the fire, melting it down, and then taking it back out, taking a hammer and just beating that metal and beating it over and over until it becomes a sword, until it becomes a shield. You have to forge it and you have to create it. And that process is painful. That process means you're going to have to make decisions. You're going to have to make tough decisions. You're going to have to make things that are going to put you in uncomfortable positions, and you're going to have to face failure. You're going to have to face failure. So that's a decision that you have to make, because if you want to change your identity, you're going to have to pick up that hammer and start forging. That means that the thing that you are afraid of is the thing that you need to be doing. The magic you're looking for is in the work that you're avoiding. That's a quote by Chris Williamson, I believe. That is so true. Everything in my life that has gone well or that has gotten me any type of positive results, it's always been something that I was avoiding, or I was avoiding the work to doing that thing. Moving up in my career, starting YouTube, fighting in MMA, all of those things are things that I avoided because the grind and the work of getting those things felt like it was beyond me. But that's a limiting belief. That's a limiting belief that you need to toss out of your head if you want to accomplish some of these things. So you need to understand that you have to go out there and actually chase uncomfortableness in order to grow. Going into the next one is your pain can become someone else's breakthrough. I thought my story, this experience only mattered to me. I thought everything only mattered to me, really. Kind of selfish when you think about it, but The reality is your story, my story, even the losses can free someone else. I started Be Unafraid podcast after the fight. What felt like personal failure to me at the time, and then after a few days and a few weeks of being in it and being in the thick of it and feeling like you're an absolute total mess, I decided that I wanted to use that to propel me up now to become a message for others and to become a lesson for myself too, because my next challenge now I know and have some experience, and obviously it's going to be tremendously hard and the failures are just going to get bigger and bigger the higher I go, but understanding that courage makes it feel possible for me, but also my failures can give someone else courage and make it feel possible for them because they can see the transformation that's happened to me, and I can articulate it and share it in a way where they can accept it and realize that it can happen to them, it can happen to you as well. Sometimes the decision that breaks you is the one that actually builds you up better. If this episode gave you the courage to make bolder decisions, don't miss this episode right here. It breaks down why high performers overthink everything and how to finally break free from it. Thanks for watching. Take care and have a wonderful day.